Hey, MOMnation, we are live with another episode of Live and Learn. This is like my all-time favorite show to do. I think I say this every single time I'm live with somebody. It's my favorite because I get to meet a ton of the mamas that are in our very rapidly growing community of MOMnation. I get to dive into their knowledge and hear about what they do and learn skills and all of that. And it's really been beneficial to my life personally. And it's just so cool to meet so many people that have so much knowledge to share. So this day is not unlike any other day where we have tons of knowledge to share, and we have an expert on with us. Welcome, Wendy. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Doing awesome. I have been super excited because I know that you've been on the schedule for the last couple of weeks, and I've been really, really excited to talk to you because the rule of 72, that's what you're going to be chatting with us about today. And it is monstrously important. And I don't know that everybody kind of gets it, even knows what it is, or understands why it's so important in our lives, or our financial lives, I should say.
Right. Yeah.
So take it away, my friend.
Okay.
What is the rule of 72?
So first of all, the rule of 72 is kind of, it's like a behind the scenes kind of thing. And so while we talk about the rule of 72 today, I'm going to bring it up to the surface to where it makes sense, like where it like hits the road with moms. Mm-hmm. And so in a nutshell, though, a lot of people, if they haven't heard of the rule of 72, they've probably heard of compound interest, right? Like we all hear about that. If we take a budgeting class or whatever, right? Like we know about compounding interest, right? In a nutshell, the rule of 72 basically talks about the way that money grows is all dependent upon the interest rate. So a teeny tiny interest rate, the money doesn't grow very much.
Right.
A bigger interest rate, the money grows a lot. So money can double. And do you think most moms want their money to double really slowly or really fast?
As quickly as possible, please.
Right. So that's where kind of understanding that there are forces at work in the world, like the rule of 72, that if we don't, it's kind of like gravity. Like we don't have to know how gravity works to be affected by it, right?
Bingo.
Right. Yeah. Same thing with the rule of 72 and compounding interest. We don't have to know about it because it's affecting us. But when we understand it a little bit better, then we're able to really harness it, I guess you could say, into doing something that is meaningful or get us to our end goal or even midpoint goals faster than if we don't understand how that works. So
precisely. Yeah.
Does that kind of give you kind of a good gist about basically the rule of 72?
It does, but can I stop you right there and back it up for those of us that have, either not been in the industry or haven't done a whole lot of investing? Can you explain what compound interest is? And then can you show an example? And maybe you have this coming up, so don't let me step on your toes, but can you show an example of the rule of 72 so we can kind of wrap our brains around it a little bit?
Yeah. So basically, if you have an interest rate, and I have even on my Facebook page, my Facebook business page, I have like diagrams and stuff. And so, but just in a nutshell, just to give you a picture of this, if you say you put $10,000 in an account that has a 3% interest rate on it, and you leave it there, you don't add to it, you just leave it there, right? $10,000 goes in untouched for 48 years. That money is going to double every, is it 12 years? It doubles every 24 years. Okay, so after 48 years, that $10,000 has doubled twice, right? So you're looking at more money than you started with, right? Mm-hmm. Then if you compare that to putting money in the same $10,000 into an account that makes 6%, now the money is doubling every 12 years. So at the end of the same 48-year period, instead of ending with like 100 and I'm going to use my cheat sheet. Instead of ending with 40,000, like a 3%, now you're looking at 160,000. So that's not adding to it. That's just putting money in and letting it be in an account that has that kind of an interest rate.
Gotcha.
Then what's really exciting is if you put it in an even higher, like a 12% interest rate, Now the money's doubling even faster. And after the same 48 years of the money doubling, again, not adding more money to it, but now you're going to have over $2 million. That's the power of compounding interest. So that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to kind of bring this into was kind of look at what moms might need to know for helping their teenagers.
Good call.
Because compound interest is something we all need to know, but people that are like 18, they have this huge advantage because they have lots of years for their money to double, right? And one thing that we talk to our clients about is how much money they need to save and accumulate through their investments and their savings to one day be able to retire. And we call that a financial independence number. And what's crazy right now is if I'm working with somebody who's like 55, 60, their financial independence number is not very big. But if I look through, and so anybody can Google, they're called financial independence calculators. You could Google it and use them. We have one that we work with our clients, but they're online, free, right? And if you put in somebody who's like 18, their financial independence number, so the dollar amount of money that they need to have before they can quit working, retire, guess, Katie, how much do you think it is?
3 million.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That was a guess.
and that so you're a good guesser. So it varies. And I do this with when I talk to younger people, there's a lot of variables, right? So 3 million though is about when I run scenarios with younger kids, it really is at about $3 million. So I like to tell teenagers or people in their early 20s and even in their late 20s, really, I'm like, there's the good news and the bad news. The good news is you're going to be a millionaire. And they're like, are you crazy?
Yeah, okay.
Right? But then I tell them also the bad news though, you have to be a millionaire. If you ever want to get to the place in your life where you're not working for money, you have to save and accumulate that much money. So here's where the rule of 72 and compounding interest and making sure that they are not just, well, let me back up. If you just put money into your bank account and you're 18 and you put in, even $100 or $200, does it ever grow at the bank?
Not much, because the interest rate is like teensy weensy.
Yeah. And so that I have a lot of fun talking to younger kids about that, because it's not something that they think about, right?
We're not taught this in school. This is why.
Yeah. And I actually talk to a lot of older people, moms, and even moms, dads, grandparents, right? And they're like, how come nobody told me this in school? And I actually have been trying to get into schools to educate this or just make an awareness, right? That so much what we're taught in school though is how to balance a checkbook, right? Or balance an account, right? Don't spend more than you're actually making. That's what we're taught about money, but we're never taught really how to make money really grow, how to utilize this rule of 72 to our benefit. So yeah. So there's a couple other things I want to point out or just mention about that, but do you have any thoughts or questions, Katie, about that yet?
Not yet. I'm with you.
Okay. So another thing that's huge when we look at, the upcoming generation. So the way that the future generation makes money is evolving. And also the way that we retire is evolving. So, you know what pensions are, right?
Yes.
Do you know older? Of course, I know you know what pensions are. How many people back in the day, if you think about like your grandparents' age, do you think most people had a pension or hardly any?
I think most people did. And a lot of them talked about Social Security being there for them when it's time to retire. So there wasn't much discussion about saving for retirement. They didn't feel they needed to, in my experience.
Yeah. Yep. And you're spot on. That's what used to happen most of the time. And I always, my grandfather, he's been gone for about, I don't even know, maybe 4 years. And he died when he was 93. So he'd be like 97-ish, right? And so this is very typical of that generation. He went to one job his whole life. He never worked multiple places. And when he turned 65, the company that he worked for threw him a retirement party. There was cake. They maybe gave him a gold watch or something. And his pension from that company took care of him and my grandma for the rest of their lives. Yeah. Right? Very, very, very common. Now, how many people have a pension nowadays?
I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. My grandparents work for themselves, and my others, everybody's has since passed from that generation. So off the top of my head, I don't know anyone.
Yeah. And so the thing is there are still pensions, and maybe some MOMnation moms have, some of you probably have pensions. But the thing is they're fewer and fewer that we see.
Oh yeah.
And there's some interesting things when we look at kind of the culture and history of what's happening right now is to get a pension, you usually have to work somewhere until you're vested, right? So you're putting in, the longer you work there, the more money you'll have at retirement. But do people stay put these days?
No, I'm trying to think. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone that I know that has been in the same job or with the same company unless they work for themselves. And that's a totally different ballgame.
Oh, yeah. And they don't have pensions either if they work for themselves, right?
Nope, don't have a pension. No, I don't.
Yeah. And so what's really interesting to just see is that, and there's a lot of reasons that companies, we won't go into all of it right now, but there's a lot of reasons that companies pull out of pensions. And one of them is people live longer. So there's more at stake, right? Like instead of people retiring at 65 and they maybe only live till 75 or 80, right? Now people living well into their 90s is very, very common.
Yes.
And so that's huge. That it's more of an investment on the company. And they're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. Sorry. So instead of pensions, what do most companies provide?
Life insurance?
No,
they don't. We wish they did.
Yeah. 401ks.
There we go.
Right. Yeah. Or 403bs, depending on who you work for. But what a lot of people don't realize is now, if a company, this is something for teenagers going into the workforce. I talk to a lot of people that are like newlyweds. They're like in their mid-20s and they're offered a 401k and they don't buy in.
What?
And that's a problem, because what does a 401k usually have?
It usually matches you, right?
Yeah. It's free money.
Yeah.
It's free money. So our kids, young parents, like people just entering the workforce, a lot of times the excuse that I hear is they're like, well, if I pay into it, what happens when I quit? They know this, that I'm not going to be at this job forever. Then how do I go move my money? And you can roll it. Yeah.
Depending, right? Yeah.
I do that all the time. Moving money out of a 401k is like so easy if you have somebody like me, especially. So that's huge. Another big cultural thing that we see right now. Sorry, I feel like my voice is like, I've had a head cold all week. So I'm like, my voice is like, hopefully you guys can still.
It's cute. It's kind of like raspy. You should sing a few bars of a song for us. I mean.
No, I don't sing, not on Zoom. Church in the choir, maybe, but not on Zoom. Sorry, Katie. The other big thing right now that people need to kind of not watch for, but have you ever heard, Katie, of what's called the gig economy or gig economy workers?
No.
So you haven't maybe heard of it by that, but you'll recognize this. A gig economy worker is somebody that works per job. They don't have like clock in, clock out times. They show up and they do the job, and they may not come back the next day for the job. It just depends. So think of a gig like musicians, like play a gig, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like they show up one night, then the bar or whatever, and they play, they get paid and they go home, right? They're not necessarily coming back for another show, right? Well, if you think about Uber, Lyft, a lot of people that are trying to do things like blog writers, they want to be a travel blog writer, right? All of those things are more and more common. And we won't go into all that COVID maybe has influenced that, but a lot of people want their freedom.
Yeah.
It's huge. More and more people nowadays, they want a job. They want like what you have, right? They want to be able to have like flexibility, and they're in charge. So they pick up these jobs that are just like part-time, or not even part-time. They're just, I'll show up if I want to show up.
Yeah. We call them independent contractors,
Yes.
right? There we go.
Yeah. That's another name for them, right? And so that's more and more common. But if you're an independent contractor, are you getting a 401k?
Absolutely not. I don't. Nope. I can tell you right now, my retirement has been on my mind for, how old am I? 42. So I wish I would have started at 18, but I probably started around 28. And yeah, it's something that I work on monthly to make sure that there's, what I need is going to be there, and really what I want. I'm trying to build the what I want right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that what you're saying about building what you want, this is what for if parents could help their late teens as they're getting ready to go out of the house, if they could help them understand kind of this one concept that their retirement, their future, and I'm not even talking about retirement at 65 or 70, because today's economy and today's world, retirement is when you have enough money to quit working.
Yeah.
And pay yourself, right? And for an 18-year-old, if they're ambitious, they could do that at 45.
Heck yeah, they could.
Right. But they don't know that. Nobody's telling them that. So they waste their energy, they waste their money, they spin their wheels in college. And I'm not telling anybody not to tell your kids to go to college. But sometimes we tell our teenagers, hey, you go do what you love. And that's all that matters. As long as, have you ever heard anybody, going back to my grandpa, he used to say this, pick a job that you love and you'll never have to work another day in your life.
I love that quote.
I know, but here's the problem with that is if you're working a job that's only paying you $15 an hour and you love it, and you have a family of 4, I have 4 kids. So just you make $15 an hour and you have 4 kids and you're paying for diapers and food and sports and all those things. Do you have enough to save to pay yourself?
Gets tight.
Right. And so one thing that, and again, I'm not trying to crush anybody's dreams, but sometimes if we have a conversation with our kids, and, Google is so powerful. If you have a kid I'll use my own kid, actually. My son is 11, and since he could talk, he's wanted to be a volcanologist. And volcanologist, like, he just loves volcanoes. And first of all, I'm like, there's not that many volcanologists in the world, I'm sure.
Right.
But, and we haven't quite gotten to this conversation with him yet, because I don't feel like he's quite old enough. But if he really wants to do that, at some point, I feel like it's my job and our job as parents to help him see, okay, what does college take? How much will it cost you to actually be, like, do you need a PhD? Mm-hmm. What do you really need to get in there, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you get there, how much student loan debt are you going to have?
That's huge.
How much are you going to make per hour salary? right? Like, what does that really look like? And if you Google that, all those answers are out there. But I don't think sometimes as moms, we take enough time. Like, we're just like, hey, go live your dreams, son. Go be happy. But one thing that I think we need to think about is if you could go in and work a job for 20 years and you may not love it, it may not be passionate, but you make a lot of money. And when you're 45, you can quit working that job and move into whatever you want, right? Like community service or overseas, like orphanage help, right? Like for a time, if we can kind of grind it and so that we're making enough to pay ourselves first, then that's also something, that's a conversation I feel like we also need to have. Is that weird? Like, do you think, is that crazy?
I don't think it's crazy at all. I think a lot of times there is no future thought, and that is detrimental, right? So planning and thinking about future is very important. And, I don't recall that being a big part of conversation when I was at the end of high school, coming into college, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know. And that's kind of where I feel like, I'm on a mission. And so, yeah, I'm a finance coach and I help people of all ages, right? But what I kind of feel like is there's really an opportunity to educate this upcoming, 20-year-olds,
Yep.
teens, right? Because it's not too late for them. Now, for me, and I'm not saying that it's ever too late for anybody, but I'm 40. I'm not going to retire at 45. I didn't do enough right.
You just know that's not going to happen.
Right? Now, no, do I plan to work until I'm 60? No, that's actually, I used to be a teacher and I switched careers 2 years ago into finance because I knew that what my husband and I were making together wasn't enough to hit our goals and our dreams, and we would die working. And so we made a career switch, right? So it's not like I don't think it's too late for anybody, right?
Right.
But if we have these conversations now, when people are with our younger kids, our teenagers, where they're starting to think, oh, you know what? I could go and be a volcanologist and maybe make $50,000 a year. And I'm just making it. I don't really know. Or this other job, if I went and was an actuary and they make $120,000 a year. Again, like I just know actuaries are math and money. I think they make more than a volcanologist, right? But do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get the example.
What would my take home be every month if I, as a volcanologist, if I only bring home 2,500 versus something else that's going to pay me 10,000 a month? Then saving, like hitting my goals for saving and investing is not a problem if I have $10,000. But if I only have 2,000, something's got to give. Usually it's paying ourselves first, investing in ourselves. So
absolutely. And that is probably one of the most important things. I mean, right down to, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm a believer in, hey, anything that you can save is positive. So, even if you're just putting down Starbucks, maybe you did a Starbucks run 5 days a week and now you're just putting down Starbucks and you're making it at home or something, and you're just tossing the Starbucks money into something that's going to, is going to grow hopefully at a faster rate, like we spoke of at the beginning of the show. I think anything is important. I feel like I've had this conversation quite a bit because I talk with clients about real estate investing, and that's a little bit of a different thing than what you're talking about. But, oftentimes somebody will make a comment that I'm speaking with, and they'll say, well, I don't have XYZ amount of money to put away every month. It just doesn't exist. And I feel like there's a misconception out there that people feel like there has to be a certain level or a certain amount, whereas, hey, just starting and just throwing something, even if it's Starbucks money, at an account that's going to grow more rapidly than, a normal bank account is important. And maybe with that habit, then you can find other areas in your life that you can make changes to increase that amount.
And that is huge. I met with a client. I met her about a year ago, and I just started out showing her just a little bit about what we did. She's a business owner, and I just kind of was networking with her, and I mentioned to her that I didn't know anything about her situation at the time, and I just mentioned, we can start investment accounts with as little as $25 a month contribution, right? And she was thinking she'd had some major changes in her life, and she was feeling very, very overwhelmed. And when she realized, starting to put money, so little money, right? Like for her, she's like, I can do $25. And she knows she eventually needs to do more than that. But it's huge. And just giving a little bit of hope that, you know what, if it's spare change for now, right? $25 eventually, right? You get something moving. And when you can see that your money is growing, like that's exciting for people to be able to be like, yeah, I put $100 in and now it's 105, and it's just little, right? But that's fun for me to see people like realize, oh, this is doable. This is not so scary. I can make this happen. It's just that starting so hard.
Yeah.
But building the habit makes a big difference. Yeah.
The habit.
And
exactly. Mindset is so important. It's like working out, right? If you haven't done it in a really long time, you're probably not going to be, as successful jumping in and trying to do a 2-hour workout 7 days a week. Right. But if you start small, and if you maybe, okay, today I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk, and then maybe in a couple of weeks, that's going to increase. You know what I mean? Then you're in that mindset, you're in that routine, you're in that habit. And I feel like saving is the very same thing. I'm going to start with this. And now because I'm in that mindset and this is what I'm looking for, I'm going to start to see other areas in my life where maybe things can, things can let up a bit and have a little bit of extra money to start throwing at it. So I feel like mindset's a giant piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also kind of having a focus. And I do this with all of our clients that we meet with, is we do this financial calculator, right? And we say, to meet your goal, you need X amount of dollars per month. And then what I love doing is we ask, do you feel like that's doable? And that number, like that monthly amount, is different depending on where people are at, how much they've already have saved, right? There's a lot of variables to that. But sometimes people say, oh, that's no problem. I have that. Let's do that. Sometimes people say, though, I'm not there yet. So we scale it back. If they need $300, could you do 150? That's still high. Okay, could you do 100? And then we can turn it on and off, right? Like it's not like they just get going, right? And they can scale it back or increase it. And so it's really cool. Just building that habit though of and having the conversation of knowing where they need to be. And so that's why I think even for teens to be aware, hey, to be a millionaire, to have that $3 million, this is what you need to do to get there. Mm-hmm. So set yourself up to be in a place in your 20s to be able to do that, right? And not throw money away, but being cognizant of, oh yeah, I need to pay myself $200 first. And then if I have extra, I'll go on that trip to Vegas, or I'll go, I don't know, what do kids do these days? I don't know.
I don't know either.
To the movies. I don't know. So, and just, there's one other thing I wanted to mention that a lot of parents don't know. There's a thing called a minor Roth IRA. And kids, I think they have to be 14 or older, they have to have a photo ID. So if they're just working like at Uncle Tom's farm and kind of getting paid under the table, that probably won't work. But if they have like a job where they have, either a driver's license or just a state ID, they can open a minor Roth IRA in their teens. And what does that do? What do you know? What a Roth IRA does, Katie?
You don't pay taxes on the income.
So it's post
later
money,
right?
Yes, yeah. You pay the taxes before you put the money in, and then the growth you don't pay the taxes on. It's huge.
Well, because
That's
the
huge.
idea is that your income level is lower now, right? And so the tax implications are going to be lower now than when you take it out later. You're probably going to be in a different tax bracket. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. So that's huge. If you've got like a 16 or 18-year-old or 15-year-old and they're working, they should have that. And a parent has to like sign on the account with them, but it is in the kid's name. That's really, really cool because then they're getting the 12% or more interest rate. We have options to those kinds of interest rates. So then bringing it back to the rule of 72, the higher interest rate on money, if you're 14, the money will double faster. And that's huge. That's huge. So not just saving it, at the bank, but saving it in an investment account that's amazing. So that's another thing I thought, oh, moms, we all need to know that for our teenagers, kids, so we can point them in that direction, right?
Absolutely. And it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me that you offer a lot of guidance to your clients or to people that contact you to talk about this stuff and to talk through their situations. And I love the fact that you're a mom as well, and you've got 4 of your own, and you went through a career change, and you're like feeling personally these things that you're guiding your people through, which I personally, I feel like there's no better guide. Obviously, you need to have knowledge and experience and education, all that. But I feel like there's no better guide than somebody who has gone through it themselves. Like I tell everybody that will listen to me, don't buy a house from a real estate agent that has never owned one before or has never gone through the process. How can they can be as book smart as they want, but how can they truly deliver that experience to you and really understand what you're going through unless they've gone through it themselves? And so I love this also because I feel like you're that same sort of guide, kind of like I am for my clients. So
Yeah.
if a mom wants to talk or a mom and dad, whatever, want to talk with you about, hey, how can I guide my child? My child, is 14 or is 16 or is coming up on 18, is going off to college. And I want to give them, the best piece of advice I can, or the best gift that I can. Can these parents reach out to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And see, our foundation with our whole company really is educating people first, because when they know better, they can do better. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yes, they should definitely reach out to me. They can DM me through my Facebook page. And we do not charge for our services. So that's another huge thing, to have a conversation. A lot of people don't talk to a financial professional because they're afraid of how much it's going to cost them.
Right.
And many companies do charge for things like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't. And so it's really like low key, like we have a conversation, we Zoom, we meet people in any of the 50 states, right? And just to make sure that their kids are on the right path, right? That's huge. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time and your expertise and filling us in on all of that. You delivered a lot of information. So I'm excited for our audience out there that has caught us live. I'm excited for our audience that's going to catch the replay here coming up, because that was a lot of info and a lot of very important info, stuff that, again, we're never taught in school. And I don't think to this day is taught in school. So, so your Facebook page is actually in the show notes right up there. So people can just click on that. And the best way to get in touch with you is to message, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy, with Team
Thank
Larson.
you. Thank you, Katie. It was a pleasure to be here. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.